What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you a video about the Skald class in Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous, which is currently in beta. So what is a Skald? So they are, mechanically speaking, a bit of a combination of the Barbarian as well as the Bard. Now, as for what they actually are, they are things like poets, historians, or just keepers of lore who use their song to inspire allies, typically into rage. Now that said, they are arcane casters like the Bard, and they use the Bard list of spells to do their casting. Now let's jump into the rest of it. So for class skills, our base class is going to have everything besides trickery and stealth. Now for proficiencies, we're going to be proficient with simple and martial weapons, light and medium armor, shields besides tower shields. Now a Skald can cast their spells while wearing light or medium armor without incurring the normal arcane spell failure chance, because they are, of course, arcane casters, which, by the way, they also use their charisma stat for their casting ability. Now, while they can cast their own class's spells without the arcane spell failure chance in light or medium armor, that does not apply to spells gotten from other classes if you're multi-classing. They also pick up Bardic Knowledge at level 1. This will add half their class level at a minimum of 1 to all knowledge and lore skill checks. And then we come to Inspired Rage. So this is the Skald's big ability, right? It's essentially a version of the Barbarian's Rage. It affects the Skald as well as all of their allies within, I believe it's 30 feet. So this gives them a +1 bonus to melee attack and damage rolls, a +1 bonus on will saving throws, but also a -1 penalty to their armor class. While under the effects of Inspired Rage, allies other than the Skald can't use any abilities that require patience or concentration. This means spellcasting, primarily, but does affect a few other things here and there. Now, at 4th level and every 4 levels after that, the song's bonuses on will saves increase by 1. The penalty to armor class doesn't change. And at 8th and 16th level, the bonuses to attack and damage rolls increase by 1. Unlike regular rage, you won't be fatigued after using this either. You might have noticed me mention that allies other than the Skald can't cast spells basically while this is active. That is true, however, there is a toggle ability for each character in your party in the game to accept the rage effect from this. So if you for instance, don't want to accept the rage effect for this, you just turn that off and then your casters can continue to cast, and this can only affect your melee people who would actually benefit from it. Now, from there, Skalds also get a bonus feat from a set list at level 1, and while the class sheet here doesn't actually tell us what that list is, being level 1, it's pretty easy to go look at. These are primarily spell-focused feats with things like combat casting, elemental focus, the meta magic feats, spell focus, spell penetration, stuff like that. So basically just spell casting feats. Now at level 2, Skalds are going to start picking up Skald talents. So these are essentially just rogue talents, but they can't pick up any of the ones that would modify the sneak attack because we, of course, aren't getting a sneak attack as this class. There's a variety of rogue talents. I actually have a video for the rogue class if you want to go check those out. I'm not really going to cover them here because I've already got that video up. And then at 3rd level, and every 3 levels after that, we can start picking up rage powers. These are the same rage powers that a barbarian would get for their rage. Again, you can check out my barbarian video if you're curious about what some of those are. But for this, we're going to be able to use that rage power to affect our allies that are under the effects of our inspired rage. So it'll affect not just the Skald, but your allies that are using the rage power. However, you can't grant rage powers that have prerequisites unless you also can grant the prerequisite rage power. It gives an example here where if you want to apply disruptive, which requires superstition, you have to also be able to grant superstition. In addition, if rage powers are limited to numbers of times per day or per rage, each ally affected by the inspired rage is also subject to that limit. Now, if your Skald has rage powers from another source, they can also use those rage powers during inspired rage, as well as vice versa. Now, starting at 9th level, we pick up damage reduction. This will eventually be 3 damage reduction to weapon and natural attacks, and this will also be conferred to your allies while under the effects of Inspired Rage. Now, at 2nd level, we pick up Well Versed, which gives us a +4 bonus to saving throws made against Bardic Performance, as well as all sonic or language-dependent effects. At 4th level, we pick up Uncanny Dodge, which will allow us to basically never be caught flat-footed. that is to say losing our dexterity bonus to AC, outside of something like being immobilized. At 6, we pick up Song of Strength. This will give allies within 50 feet of us who can hear our Song of Strength the ability to add half the Skald's level to all strength-based skill checks. At 7th level, we pick up Lore Master. This will allow us to take 10 on any knowledge skill check that you have ranks in. Also at 7th level, we'll be able to use our Raging Song as a move action instead of a standard action. Improved Uncanny Dodge comes at 8, makes us immune to being flanked. At 10th level, we pick up Dirge of Doom, which will allow us to make enemies within 50 feet able to hear us shaken, and will persist for as long as that enemy is within 50 feet, and the Skald continues its performance. Now, this won't cause a creature to become frightened or panicked, and moreover, it's a sonic mind-affecting fear effect, which means the creature has to be able to hear you. Now at 13th level, we can use our Raging Song as a swift action. At 14th level, we pick up Song of the Fallen, which will allow us to temporarily revive dead allies to continue fighting. They're alive but staggered. Each round, the Skald can expend another 1 round of Raging Song to keep them alive for another round. And they automatically die if the Skald ends their performance or is interrupted. Then at level 20, we pick up Master Skald. So this removes the penalty to AC from Inspired Rage, and moreover, no longer limits what skills or abilities they can use. And they will act as if they were under a haste effect. Now that brings us to Battle Scion. For starters, there is a slight change to their bardic knowledge, and that comes through courtly presence. The Battle Scion will get a bonus equal to half their level to persuasion checks made to intimidate. However, bardic knowledge only applies to Knowledge World then. And then we take a look at Battle Prowess. We can choose, instead of taking a Rage Power, to pick up a Teamwork feat to grant through our Inspired Rage. So for starters, in place of Rage Powers, we can choose to pick up Teamwork feats. But in order to grant those Teamwork feats to our allies, we actually wind up expending more rounds of our Rage than we normally would per round. So instead of expending 1 round per round, we will then expend 3 rounds per 1 round for every Teamwork feat we're trying to give. And then for our level 20 abilities, we also get Once in Future Scion added, which makes us extremely difficult to kill. Once per day, whenever you are slain, as long as your body isn't destroyed, you resurrect at the end of combat with full HP. Corp Poet, which is our next archetype, is perhaps the most interesting of them because instead of Inspire Rage, we get Insightful Contemplation. This gives our allies, instead of the Rage powers I mentioned, a +2 morale bonus to Intelligence and Charisma, and a +1 morale bonus on Will saving throws, but they of course take the penalty to AC. And then it upgrades, as usual, per the levels. It still doesn't make us fatigued at the end of it, however, you'll notice that with this particular archetype, our casters can still cast, plus they get their bonus to Intelligence and Charisma. So essentially, it makes our Inspire Rage affect casters and stuff better than melee as opposed to the base class. At 2nd level, they also pick up Handling the Crowd, which gives them a +1 bonus to AC when they are adjacent to 2 or more creatures. In addition, they're not supposed to be impeded by crowds, and they gain a bonus equal to half their Skald level on diplomacy checks to influence crowds. And if I had to guess, that's probably not going to come up in the game very much. And instead of Song of Strength, they pick up Song of Inspiration. So instead of adding half the Skald's level to strength-based checks, it applies to wisdom-based checks instead. Now that brings us to the Demon Dancer. So the Demon Dancer will trade some of their rage powers for some demon-related stuff. For starters, they pick up Fiendish Maw, which will give anyone who accepts the rage a bite attack dealing 1d6 points of damage, which will increase as they level up to 1d8 at 7th, 2d6 at 12th, and 3d6 at 17th. At 6th level, they pick up Fiend Totem, which is a rage power. Anyone who strikes the person with the rage power with a melee weapon to take 1d6 points of piercing damage. At 7th level, they pick up Demonic Conquest, which increases the strength bonuses of your Inspire Rage. However, if the creature stops attacking or changes the target, they suffer 1d6 plus your Skald level points of damage. And then at 9th level, they pick up Fiend Totem Greater, which will surround the person with an aura of menace. Good creatures adjacent to them will be shaken, as well as take 2d6 points of slashing damage at the beginning of their turn. Neutral creatures will become shaken but won't take the damage. and evil creatures will be unaffected. Now that brings us to the Herald of the Horn. So the Herald of the Horn primarily just gains things, and that seems to be a game adjustment. So in the pen and paper version, it's my understanding that the Herald of the Horn has to use a horn to cast all of their spells, which means they don't get a shield because they have to use their horn in their offhand. That's not the case in the game, and because of that, it looks like the Herald of the Horn really just gains stuff in place of that. And that starts with having Bonded Object, which allows them to once per day restore any one spell slot, as well as pick up Rousing Retort at 5th level, which will let them use their Raging Song to free allies from enchantment effects or fear, by expending 4 rounds of that ability to grant allies within 30 feet a new saving throw against an ongoing enchantment or fear effect, with a +2 bonus to that new savings throw. At 7th level, they pick up Horn Call, which comes in place of the Lore Master. So if a Skald spell with a Sonic descriptor is cast, its DC increases by 1 and increases an additional 1 at 13th and 19th levels. Then at 11th level, we pick up Crumbling Blast, which will essentially let you use a devastating shockwave of energy once per day, using your proverbial horn as a Horn of Blasting. It doesn't actually tell you what that is here, but the Horn of Blasting is essentially an item that will let you deal 5d6 sonic damage to enemies within, I believe it's 40 feet, as well as deafen them potentially. And it will do extra damage to crystalline objects or monsters. And then at 17th level, you can do this as if it was a greater Horn of Blasting, which increases the damage to 10d6. And that brings us to our Huntcaller, our last archetype. Now, they trade some rage powers as well as their Revive the Fallen ability for a couple of other things. So for starters, they pick up Wilderness Magic at 5th level and at 11th and 17th level as well. The Huntcaller can add 2 spells of any level they can cast from the Druid spell list to their class spell list, as if it was a Skald spell. And then at 6th level, they get Inspire Scent, which gives them the Scent Rage power, which allows them to locate unseen foes. They will detect opponents within 30 feet by sense of smell as if they had blind sense. And that is going to do it for the Skald, guys. A pretty cool class. I think people will have a lot of fun with it. It's very interesting, if nothing else, and I think honestly is a fun take on the Bard that actually makes it a little more, fun, as personally Bards aren't my thing, so I think this actually changes that enough to make the concept of a Bard pretty cool to me. So with that out of the way, guys, I hope you got the information you were looking for out of this video. Truly, just thank you so much for watching. I couldn't do it without you guys. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.